my name is Tamika Michelle. I am so happy and such a pleasure to be here to introduce my girl Saniyyah and her new book, Transition of a Butterfly. Let me tell you, girl, this book gave me life. As a life coach and transformational speaker, I was, oh my God, like reading the book, there was highs, there was lows, there were so many emotions that I felt. Then I cannot wait for this book to get out. As I text you, this is a bestseller. I'm claiming it. I'm believing it. This book was all of that. So, I mean, I don't even know where to start because legit, like when I opened up the book, I swear to you, I felt like you were telling my story. Like just from the first page, like talking about Kat, the characters, it's just such a dope story. Being the oldest of 10, I felt like this was my story. Like somebody has captured my story. So tell me kind of the premise. How did you come up with this?
So, as you know, I wrote Identifying and Breaking the Cycle. Transition of a Butterfly actually was the first book. I had wrote it and then lost it. Could not find it nowhere in my documents. And then I wrote Identifying and Breaking the Cycle. So after I wrote that, I'm like, that's a self-help book, but now I need to show characters how cycles actually play out, because you can read a self-help book, but I think it's better when people actually see it. Like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Because we say cycles, but how do they play out? How do they affect us? And that's what led me to write Transition of a Butterfly.
Right. Like, I mean, real life experiences. I don't know any young girl that could not relate to the topics in this book. This book hit all the hot topics. I mean, everything from interracial dating to molestation to teen pregnancy to suicide. I mean, there were so many different topics that we can dive into. So I just want to know, and you know, I like to be edgy. I want us to like be real with it, because so often we're surface. So often we don't talk about what's really going on. So one of my thoughts as I was reading this, I'm like, are any of these stories like relevant to your life or to other people and I know as a therapist, you have so much integrity and so much, there's your ethics, your ethics are high, but I'm sure there's things that you've heard that you were able to infuse in this book. Can you share a little bit about that?
As a writer, you're a writer. You know, everything that you write is something you've seen, something you've heard, something you've experienced. You may take it and twist it, but it's always something that you're knowledgeable of, whether it's a character from your family, whether it's your own personal experience, whether you may heard someone talk about it. So I collected everything, like from my personal life, from family members, from things I've heard with doing therapy. And I kind of said, I need to bring awareness to these things because, like you said, they're not talked about. It's subtle and it gets swept under the rug. But these are things that we need to address, that they're cycles. And if you don't break them, they go on and on for generation to generation.
Absolutely. One of the cycles was the teen pregnancy. So the main character, Kat, her mother, she was a piece of work,
A piece of work. A piece of work.
And I know that there's many young girls, many young people that can identify with that type of mother.
Right.
And so one of the cycles was then her sister Sabrina went on to repeat that cycle. How does those type of cycles break? How does that happen?
I think it's being aware, because you can identify any cycle, but to break it is the hard part. You get what I'm saying? And sometimes when we're in the cycle, sometimes we don't see, we normalize it. So it's not, I didn't break my cycles until I got into psychology and I started to see, wait a minute, this is off. But even as a kid, certain things were not normal to me. Right. Even though it was my family norm, I didn't feel like I was a part of it because it felt off. And I think once you identify there's a cycle, that's when it takes personal work and growth. You have to then break it.
So there's just some truth and bringing awareness, bringing it to light. And so often we like to sweep things under the rug. One of the things that on Kat's father's side of the family, which she didn't meet until she was 16, 17 years old, was the chronic molestation and rape of the young girls. As I was reading that, there was some, internal stuff that I was dealing with. Biases and kind of just wondering, in your opinion, how often does that happen? And is it really certain cultures that we see that more? And I know in your professional life, you may have seen that and just live in life, that we may see that more prominent in certain cultures. Or do you just think that that's something that's across the board that we sweep underneath the rug and it goes on too long?
It's something that's definitely across the board, but the reason why I made it a Hispanic family, because it's a taboo that's not spoken about, and a lot of people don't know. Even knowing people personally and in therapy, usually when you meet someone, not usually, because it's not like it's everybody, but it does happen more than you would think, where in Hispanic culture that men sleep with their daughters or their nieces and sometimes their nephews. And it's something that I wanted to address because people are not discussing it. And when I talk to people about it, they're like, oh my God, you know, my mom knew, my mom didn't know. This is something that's been going on in our family for years and no one talks about it. So I want to bring awareness to things that people are not talking about. We need to address these things so we can break these cycles and live a fulfilled life, because in reality, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Today I was at another meeting and I was telling them the only way to address taboos is to talk about it. You know, it used to be said that if you talked about sex, kids would want to do it. You know, we're learning that if you talk about suicide, it does not make kids more likely to commit suicide. Actually, it brings awareness to it. With recent things, I mean, there's so many things that this book, man, like just today, like in today's day and age, I'm not sure if you watched 13 Reasons Why.
Yes.
Man,
Yes.
and it talks about suicide. So as I was reading the book, I thought about Stephen and how he committed suicide. How does a young person, an old person, whoever, you know, I think suicide is actually a normal emotion that at some point we all may have that fleeting thought. How do we prevent it? Is suicide even preventable?
I think it's definitely preventable. And I think just what you said, how sometimes people had said, like, if you talk about sex, kids will want to have sex. Not necessarily. I think when we don't address things, that's when we're more susceptible to do it. Like for suicide, talk about it. Tell your parents, tell your friends, I'm feeling like this. So that way we are aware that you're feeling like this. That way we can have a preventative measure. We can put coping skills in place, get counseling, talk to someone. But if we don't discuss it, how do we know our loved one, our friend is dealing with this? And usually that's what makes them end up committing suicide, because there's no outlet.
Absolutely. Oh, man. When Kat was going through the things that she was going through, she went to a therapist, Mrs. Mayo, right? And Miss Mayo gave so many coping skills that really helped Kat, and that pushed her to the limit. I think so often why we don't like to talk about stuff is because it pushes us.
Exactly.
We have to do some work. What are, even in your professional life, and just some things that you've done to really help you break those cycles and push past the limits that maybe your family, that culture, that society has put on you?
It's work, and that's the problem. We don't want to be pushed to grow. And I always say, if you're not growing, you're stuck, you're stagnant, because you shouldn't be the same person you were years ago.
Yeah.
And it's gonna take work, but you have to be willing to do the work. You know, even being alone, because when you break away from the family cultural norms, everyone is not going to understand it. They're not going to understand it. They're not going to accept it. And they're not going to understand what you're doing. Some people may think it's dumb, but you have to do it for a peace of mind for you. So even if that means being on your own island by yourself sometimes, because it's going to happen, trust me.
Yeah.
When you break away from generational cycles, especially within your family, people are going to say you think you better. I've been told that a lot. But it's not that I think I'm better. It's that I want more. I'm better enough to want more. And this is not what I want. So I am better.
Come on,
not
now.
in an arrogant way, but in a confident way, because I know my worth and I know what I'm supposed to be doing and who I'm called to be.
Yes.
So being by yourself, don't be afraid to step out. And I always tell people, it's easier said than done to break the cycle. But the question is, are you willing to get it?
Yeah, absolutely. And some of those things that Kat's therapist had her do was like journaling. How beneficial do you think journaling and really facing the truth, looking at it head on and just saying, like, calling it is what it is? Do you think that those things are truly beneficial and there's something that everyone can like put into their life and do on a daily basis?
Definitely. I think you should always self-reflect. I mean, even as a therapist, I always self-reflect. Even if I didn't see the bigger picture and someone comes and tells me I offended them or whatever, I'm going to look at how my actions could affect someone, because I feel like if we don't internalize and look at ourselves, because it's easier to look at other people than focus on ourselves. So I feel like when we don't look at ourselves, we're cheating ourselves to be a better us.
Very good. Man, one of the other things, you know, it's crazy because even good things can be seen as taboos in certain cultures. Right. So one of the things that really impressed me, because, man, I'm telling you, this book, y'all, it had me on an emotional roller coaster. I was like, oh, Lord, is this girl going to get any relief? So the fact that she went to school, that can actually be seen as a taboo in some cultures. Like like you said, she thinks she's better than. She's running away. Her beauty. You know, some of us didn't ask to be this pretty, y'all. But some of those things are actually taboos in certain cultures.
Right.
Talk to that a little bit about the school and her looks and things that she just kind of inherited through God.
In any culture, I've seen in Asian, African American, Hispanic, darker is always ugly, you know, and the lighter you are, the most beautiful you are. I know in the African American culture, speaking from my ancestors, it started within slavery.
Yes.
And it was a mindset that has basically snowballed from generation to generation, and we still haven't broke it. You know, it went from being the lighter now to being mixed, and it just keeps reincarnating itself, but it's not dissolving, it's not decreasing. And I think the only way, even with that cycle, is that we break it, is that we teach our children that they're beautiful regardless of their skin tone, regardless of their hair texture. And we also let them know that other people are beautiful just as well. Like, I have kids, they're like brown to light, they have curly hair, but I've always taught them that love yourself, but also recognize there's beauty in every color, every hair texture, every body shape. And I think as African Americans, we don't teach that. We actually self-hate ourselves. You know, you hear people that say, "Oh, we only have a certain, you know, I only date certain people." And you could date whoever you want, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whoever. But when you feel like that you only want to date a certain person so your kid can look a certain way, there's an internal issue.
Right.
Because if you're saying, I'm an African American and I won't date an African American, in reality, what is that saying about you?
Right.
So I think those are the things that we definitely need to address. We've been addressing it for years, but it doesn't seem like it's getting any better. I'm loving the movement, even though I have my fake hair. I'm loving the movement of the natural movement, because for so many black girls, they are taught that, you know, your hair is not good enough. And I think, you know, hair to me is like an accessory.
Yeah.
So you can wear your hair any kind of way. My thing is just being comfortable with you, regardless of what it looks like.
Absolutely. Colorism is real. And it's one of those things, again, that we don't talk about a lot in the African American community. And not to give away all the secrets of the book, because I want y'all to go out and get this book. But that was one of the biggest things with the sisters. You know, I grew up in a home. I have 10 brothers and sisters. I have 5 sisters. And I was always considered the lighter one, the prettier one. And that broke my heart, because I wanted to just be like everybody else, you know. And it's within the African American community, it's still something that we are dealing with. The brown paper bag test, the good hair versus bad hair, you know. And
what is good hair and bad hair?
What is good? My daddy used to always tell me, if you got any hair on your head, it's good.
Right.
So I think once we start talking about these things and acknowledging the deep, I mean, this is generational, 500 plus years worth of stuff that was put on us. We inherited this. This wasn't, you know, our own thought process. This was inherited to us. Interracial dating. The book even talks about interracial dating. And let me back up really quickly, because you said something that kind of stepped on my toes. I have 4 beautiful children, and before I met their father, I was deeply in love with somebody that was dark skinned. But I broke up with him because he was dark skinned, and I did not want to have babies with him. And this book brought that light to me. I knew it subconsciously, but, you know, I guess kind of just admitting the truth, and it frees me of it, because I didn't want my babies to be dark, because I knew that struggle. So thank you again for bringing those things. I'm telling you, as the readers read this book, it's going to bring up things that they probably did not even, you know, that we hold down. So.
And I want to bring, and I'm glad that you were honest with yourself, because like I said, the only way we're going to grow is if we self-reflect. But, you know, a lot of times the lighter skin of African Americans, they get like the book thrown at them. And so I want to address that part too, because they're the victim as well. And a lot of times they feel like they're not black enough. I had a girlfriend, she was really light complected, almost light to the point where she could have been mistaken for Hispanic. And growing up, people would taunt her and say, you know, you're not black. So it's on both sides, dark and light. And so we can't just say, you know, it's colorism against dark skins, because it as well as our light-skinned counterparts. And that's one thing, we have to be open-minded and sensitive to one another. But jumping into interracial dating. Okay.
Because you would think in 2017 that this is something that we're over, but not really.
Right. It's still something that plagues us to this day, something that we're not really open to, even though we say we are. But we are a country that's divided, obviously, based on, what we're seeing in the media. And so I wanted to have an interracial couple in the book because I wanted to showcase, love does not have color. It does not have color. I think we teach our children that love has color, or you have to be with a certain person, or a person has to look a certain way. They have to have a certain job, a certain build. Love has no color. You don't choose who you fall in love with. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Love happens. You don't say that person is medium built, got a beard, they're this complexion, I want to love him and marry him.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
Right.
And so I wanted to showcase that when you fall in love from the heart, not based on the exterior. You may be attracted to that person, but it goes far beyond just a look.
Yeah, good. That is so, so good. As a single woman, single, ready to mingle, I'm like, hey, as long as you got all the right qualities, right, I'm there. But, this book, again, it just touches so many different areas, One of the other things that I kind of wanted to dig a little deep and get your perspective and really pick your brain on the LGBTQ population and community. They're a community that is marginalized and sometimes discriminated against. And in the book, the character was very vocal about her opinion. So I wanted to get your opinion and your true, honest opinion about that community. And if I could imagine the way the character responded is very similar to how you would respond. And I just want you to bring that to light.
It was definitely the way I would want to respond, or I would respond in a situation like that, or I have responded. The LGBT community, I feel like, as people, we are to love and accept anyone. And I think sometimes they get the book thrown at them as well, because we say, well, that's against God. It doesn't go with biblical terms or principles, which I agree. But at the same time, I feel like we all have our strongholds. We all have our hangups. And I feel like to love is the best way to overconquer anything.
Yes.
And that's how you bridge the gaps with people. And so I think a lot of times we are so judgmental with people, like, oh, well, they do this, it doesn't align with my beliefs, but that is okay. That doesn't mean you can't love someone because you don't agree with what they're doing. But the reason why I responded the way I responded in the book was because I feel like a lot of times if I say I don't agree with homosexuality, then I'm plagued or, demonized, or you are homophobic, or you are against, and I'm not against anyone, but just because your belief does not align with mine does not mean we can't be friends.
Right.
Does not mean I can't love you. Does not mean I can't have a conversation with you. It just means we have different views and principles.
Absolutely.
So I responded like that because I feel like anytime I say, or someone that is not, homosexual or lesbian or whatever, it's like, oh, well, you're putting us down, you're talking about us. And it's like, that's just, you have your opinion and I have mine. How come I can't be just as vocal as you with your beliefs and values?
Yes.
It should be the same across the board. You don't agree with me because you date a man or a woman. And I don't agree with you because I date a man. You get what I'm saying? So you give us an equal playing field where we both can say what we feel without bashing, degrading, and disrespecting each other.
Yes. And one of the biggest principles that I got was non-judgment. There was no judgment. It was facts. Like, this is how I feel. This is how, there was no judgment. And I think if we continue to go about our life with every situation that way, both parties can be happy.
Right.
There was a pinnacle moment in the book, a happily ever after. There was some good stuff. And one of the things that I really appreciated is how you basically, gave props to your husband, gave props to yourself. That I think that was so beautifully done. And I wanted to kind of talk about your strategy in doing that.
So I feel like we always promote everything. We are walking billboards. And the reason why I say that, if a woman has on cute shoes, another woman is going to say, those are cute. Where did you get those shoes from? So in my book, I talk about my friend's season. I talk about my husband's brand. I talk about refer to myself, because who's going to market me better than me or like me? Because everyone is not going to market you. I feel like we market people every day for free, these big corporations. So if you can market them, why not market yourself?
Yes. It was so, and not only did you market your husband and your friend and yourself, but you like repped Cali to the fullest. And I was like, yes, West Side stand up. Y'all know I'm a little hood still, a little bit. But I love that. You reference San Bernardino. You reference like real life stuff that people on the East or the West Coast can can think about and can appreciate, and people all, because I believe that this book is going to be global, it's going to be all over the world, so people in other parts of the country are going to be able to, as you put it, as we were talking earlier, research Kendrick Lamar, research these other people that maybe are California natives or California things. So I want to thank you, as a California girl, you did that very beautifully, very beautifully.
Thank you.
So like I said, this book was so good. I just want to know what's next. What's next for you? You have been a woman that I'm very blessed that we have connected. We've shared the stage. We've done amazing things together. And I see this book going global. I see it being in the hands of high school students. It's something that people can relate to. This needs to be in churches. This needs to be all over the world, because it is bringing to light these taboo issues that the cycle needs to be broken. So what's next for you?
What's next for me? I just wrote a screenplay, Misled, and that is 3 different girls, and it shows how they're misled in different ways.
Wow.
Through social media, a lot of times we focus on likes or, comments, and that's how we value who we are. And I wanted to showcase, you could be prostituted in so many different ways. You don't have to just go out and sell your body. Yeah. When you're posting for likes and comments, you're a prostitute just the same way. You're just doing it for likes and comments and not money. And so my screenplay talks about 3 young girls and how they're misled in different ways, but showcasing that, we just look and say, okay, she's a prostitute, wipe her, or, get rid of her or shun her, but you're doing the same thing. You're just doing it in a different way. Wow. And so I'm doing a screenplay. I'm working on my 3rd book, doing a talk show. So there's just going to be so much more from the Saniyyah Mayo brand, GrindFace. We're working on so many different projects, and I just can't wait to see where it goes, because to be honest with you, I could be just laying in bed or at work or wherever, and I just get an idea, and then I just start going with it, and it just works out in my favor every time.
Wow. Well, you have an absolute brilliant mind. I am so glad that you got this piece of work out. Like I said, there were so many pieces of the book that I related to, that I was able to say, man, she's talking to me, she's talking about me. One of the things that would you hashtag don't prostitute yourself for likes, man, that needs to be like on a shirt or something, because so many of us are guilty of that. You post something and then you check in every 5 minutes to see how many likes you have, and we need to stop that. We really need to stop that, because that brings up so many insecurities, so many deep-rooted things. And I think from the book, from my interaction with you, one of the things that I've learned is just to love and accept yourself for who you are. So I want to thank you. I really want to thank you for this book. I want to thank you for bringing up topics that we don't talk about, and bringing them to light and making them real and relevant. Anything else that you wanted to share? Your husband is amazing. He's doing his behind the camera work right now. Is there anything else that
I would just share with anybody, because we didn't have a lot of resources when we started. And I feel like a lot of times I hear people, or they'll send me their book or say, can you read my book? I need help. And it's like, start with what you have.
Yes.
I think as long as we keep waiting for what we need, we'll never start. And so my idea just came with a pencil and paper.
Wow.
I just started to write. And so, billion-dollar corporations are started with just an idea, a pencil, and a paper. So don't wait to say, I need this, I need a cameraman, I need an outfit, I need my hair done. Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it. With that, I just want to thank you so much for this transition to Butterfly book. It is going to absolutely change your life. Go out and get it. Just do it. Stop making excuses. Go out and do it. Live the best life that you should live. And like my girl always say, break them cycles. Love y'all. Peace.
GrindFace.